Hey, what's happening? Welcome to Mates TV. So Liverpool are in the midst of an historically bad run of form. In fact, you have to go back to the 1950s for the last time that Liverpool started the season as poorly as this, and what it's inevitably led to is conversations around Arne and his future at the football club. And I say inevitable because, when you lose games of football, so many games of football, then that's just the way that conversation is naturally going to turn. I want to discuss it. I've had a few days to think about it. I ummed and ahed about this post Forest, but because I wasn't in the ground for it, I wanted to gestate on it a little bit. I gave some thoughts on the Red Men Originals podcast on the Monday afterwards, and was possibly a little bit more negative. I think I kind of got swept up in a room full of misery in that one. But listen, I went to watch Liverpool PSV. I watched a capitulation with my own eyes in the building, and kind of got more of a sense of the mood around me as well. So look, I'm going to sit here, freestyle this. There might be a cut or two if I feel that I've kind of rambled or said something that's just absolute nonsense, but largely I'm just gonna go with the flow here. So stick with me. This won't be a particularly fancily put together video. So the form is bad. It's really, really bad. And I think we've had a spell where what I always tend to do is I tend to watch football quite emotionally, but actually more like from a positive sense. I don't get really angry about the football ever. I love the fun of football. I love the joy of football. I love the creativity of football. So I can find enjoyment in footy, even in defeat, because I find it in the small moments, in skills and good tackles and nice passages of play and goals and all that kind of stuff. What I tend to do when things aren't going well is I consult the experts. So I turn to the likes of Paul Tompkins and obviously these days Josh Williams, Mizgan, and just there's tons, Dan Kennett, the guys who have the time and intelligence to really delve into the numbers. And I've seen Liverpool go through some poor patches in the past, quite a few under Jurgen Klopp, and my overriding sense is often I think something will come right. It's really nice to go and read really intelligent pieces put together by very, very clever people who kind of back that up. It reminds me a lot of the story from Ian Graham's book where he talks about Jurgen Klopp's last season at Dortmund and how all the media, and I think Dortmund fans have gone, well, this has just run its course. He's had his day, and everyone's kind of figured Klopp out. And what the data said was they were just having just ridiculously bad luck, like unprecedented levels of bad luck that isn't meant to stack on top of one another, but it was hiding the fact that there was a good team in there. And obviously Klopp turns it round and has a stronger end of the season. But it's those kind of ways of assessing things. So I think there's the eyeball test and there's the data test, isn't there? And for this last run, I think Liverpool have at times failed the eyeball test, but maybe passed the analytical test in it. What I struggle with is that when you live in it, it is very hard not to feel down in the dumps and negative about stuff when your football club's not winning. So I've been prepared to kind of let this ride out. What I'll say is, when Liverpool beat Villa and Real Madrid, psychologically, what I did was kind of draw a line under what had gone before. Liverpool started with loads of wins. We'd obviously done it by kind of hook or by crook. Loads of really late dramatic winners in a whole variety of circumstances. But they got the points on the board. And then when the results tailed off, I was like, well, okay, I can kind of see that maybe if you'd kind of spread that out a little bit, it would have found Liverpool's true level. But my hope was that, once you turned the corner, got a couple of wins, and a couple of really good wins against Villa and Real Madrid. I was like, right, okay, that feels to me like this team's shown that it's definitely got quality. It will start to come out. So what I was prepared to do was kind of just push the rest of the season to the back of my mind, look forward and say, okay, let's see if we can see a little bit more of that. So rather than say, at the end of the last two games, the City and Forest game, that's, one huge giant bad run with a little bit in the middle. I was kind of psychologically prepared to say that's 2 defeats in 4, which sounds stupid, but that's my glass half full way of looking at it, because I didn't see any sense in getting too wound up about the things that have gone in the past. I just needed to see Liverpool moving forward. And then, of course, the Forest thing happens. And then last night against PSV happens as well. And that, for me, I want to see Liverpool do good front foot stuff. And I think in so many regards, the front foot stuff has gotten a little better. We're not scoring loads of goals, but it doesn't feel a million miles away from something, because Liverpool have got really good footballers in that area of the pitch. But my major concerns have come from just this overriding systemic almost problem. And the hardest thing to unpick is it tactical? Is it physical, or is it psychological? And this is the point where we have to say that obviously the squad are going through something. They're going through a huge thing, a thing that we can't possibly truly wait up following the passing of Diogo Jota. We are in a real moral quandary off the back of that, because I don't know about you, how you felt about it in the summer. I've definitely said this since, but I was prepared to. I said, look, these boys can do what they want almost this season. Not in like I don't want to see people taking the piss, but I mean, they've gone through something that we can't truly understand. So, let's cut them some slack. The problem with that is, I think we all kind of, even the best amongst us, probably didn't anticipate it going this way. And look, let's be honest, we're sat here in November heading into December. Liverpool are the reigning Premier League champions still. They absolutely will not be retaining that trophy this season, but they are the reigning champions. We went into the summer with a real sense of positivity. Liverpool took real dramatic action in the transfer market to try and cement their place at the top. Major work was needed, a major refresh was needed. Slot did a great job with a squad, with Klopp's squad, but the time was it was the right time to kind of move on and start to evolve and change things. I just did not have being here on my bingo card for this season at all. So I'm really struggling with where to place it, to be perfectly honest, because I really want to cut them all slack. I really, really do. But I feel like I'm being more influenced by a lot of the online noise. Now, the online noise is always, since it's existed, it's been there. So I've been covering Liverpool now. I'm in my 16th year of doing this. So we started Redmen TV in 2010 when Roy Hodgson was given the job. Rafa just got sacked. I think when we filmed the pilot, Rafa was in charge. We just finished second and things were really looking up. And then he had a bit of a dire season, gets sacked, and then Roy Hodgson comes in. And it's not right from minute one. So obviously, and then you've got the ownership takeover, FSG come in, or Nesby at the time, and sack Roy Hodgson. So we've been through that. They obviously give it to Kenny on the interim basis, and then a year later end up sacking Kenny Dalglish as well. Brendan Rodgers, the new front-thinking coach, comes in. It's good for a bit. There's definitely a building process, and then we realise his limitations, and then it's Jürgen. And Jürgen is an island. He is a case unto himself. The guy that just walks out of the football club effectively, not sacked, doesn't leave Liverpool at this low ebb where literally anyone coming in can improve. What my point I'm kind of making is, even in covering it, I've been through these situations before, and my time as a Liverpool fan. Obviously, I've lived through. I was a bit young for Kenny leaving the first time around, but I remember the emotional impact of it. A bit young for Souness going, but Roy Evans, I remember, Gerard Houllier going, and Rafa, and all of these things came in sort of different ways. The defeat to PSV, and from what I'm told, the feeling in the ground against Forest felt quite similar to the end of like Houllier type thing, where, and maybe even Brendan Rodgers to some extent, where you feels like this just isn't working. You've got good footballers there. When it's good, but when it crumbles, there doesn't seem to be buy-in from the squad to really dig deep. But again, this emotional issue is huge in this. How much? Because it might be the tactics. It might be that Slot's tactics aren't good. It might be that we've bought an unbalanced squad. And I think there are definitely aspects of that. We might have lost a step in pre-season. It might be eaten into training in terms of all these kind of things as well, because we don't look particularly fit either. But I don't know how much the emotional stuff has a knock-on impact to all of that. You know, is it mental resilience? If your mental resilience is low, then it has a knock-on impact to every aspect of your life. So again, I'm kind of talking around this whole thing that I don't really know how to judge it, so I'm struggling to come to a categoric place. It's come upon us so quickly. I mean, the Brendan Rodgers thing, I remember having a sense his penultimate season, we got battered by Real Madrid at Anfield, and that was like around this time of year. And I remember saying to a couple of people walking out of the ground, I don't think he's good enough to be the Liverpool manager here. But it then took the rest of the season, and then he got kept on. And he's been kept on, refreshed his coaching staff, brought some new players in, deserves a chance to have a go of it. And then Liverpool are just so mediocre. But the difference is, Jurgen Klopp is there waiting, and by that point, ready to take the reins. So the decision all kind of makes sense. It worked out in the best possible way. I'm not sure if Liverpool were to sack Arne Slot right now, I just don't know what the plan would be. And I know there is this huge temptation because when something's wrong, it's got to be fixed. And we want the shortest pathway to the best answer. And, you know, because we can't know how any decision's going to go, you know, any decision, whether you keep him or get rid of him or whatever, you kind of trust some action needs to be taken. Any action is better than no action. Now, what's going to be really interesting in this is what FSG do. And by FSG, I mean Michael Edwards, and then obviously beneath him, Richard Hughes. Because obviously Arne Slot is Richard Hughes' man, and Richard Hughes is Michael Edwards' man. But Michael Edwards is basically the head of football operations for FSG, so he oversees the project. He's taken on Mike Gordon's role from previously. So this is not going to be John Henry, you know, sat around a table. Maybe he'll be consulted in some regards and Tom Werner, I imagine. But again, I feel like the book will go to Michael Edwards on this. And one thing, people have gone up and down on Liverpool's ownership group. You know, they've made some terrible decisions. They've made some really smart decisions. They've made the decisions that have gotten Liverpool back to the sort of top table of football. So kind of, well, whatever. I'm not getting into the wider things around FSG. But one thing I would say is they are not afraid to make big decisions, whether they're popular or not, but they are very keen to make, where possible, smart decisions. And so, you know, the Brendan Rodgers thing, not sacking him in the summer, looks a bit mad. But when it ultimately means that Jurgen Klopp is available when the season starts, then it's a stroke of genius. Maybe a bit of luck, but ultimately they then had to pull the trigger. And they pulled the trigger on Rodgers on the back of a couple of draws, like a draw in a Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. In isolation was absolutely fine. But it was the perfect storm of, no, this is the right moment. We're going to make that big decision. You know, they sack Roy Hodgson after half a season. They bring him in because there's so much ill feeling. The season is going really, really badly. And they turn around and there isn't the nailed on best next choice, but Kenny Dalglish is there and he's prepared to come in on the interim basis. Where they possibly made the mistake is getting swept up in a little bit of the sentiment of it. It's still very new to football. It's keeping it on for the year, and then they've got to suffer the ignominy of sacking a legend at the end of the following season. But again, it's a big decision made, and yeah, what I'm kind of driving at here is, I think in an ideal world, you only sack your manager when you know that there's something better out there. When you're upgrading, you know, it's like you would do transfers, and I think this is how they've done transfers in the past. We've kind of gone, you know, they've made some transfer decisions that we've, you know, raised eyebrows at, wrinkled a few foreheads at, like waiting to sign Virgil van Dijk for half a season when it was Liverpool desperately needed a centre-half. That was the prevailing logic amongst fans. Liverpool had to go and get a centre-half that summer. They messed up the Van Dijk deal. Oh well, never mind, move on, just get a centre-half, get a centre-half, get a centre-half. And cooler heads prevail and they go, this guy's worth waiting for. And ultimately, wow, best centre-half to ever play for the football club, arguably of all time, because of that decision. Now, Ibu Konate is not flavour of the month at the moment, but he's another one where they know they're getting him, so they obviously in the face of tons of injury issues for the centre-half positions in the last post-title season. They hang on, they get Kabak in on loan, they get Ben Davies in just to cover the slack, but it doesn't rob them of the funds required to get Konate, who they're convinced is the guy. And look, I think by and large, I think Konate's been a very good signing for Liverpool. If you get back to that level, we'd maybe have slightly less issues this season. But they're just a couple of examples of this thing where I'd be interested to see whether the approach to transfers, which is we are better off, we haven't got endless funds, so we're better off getting the right person rather than rushing into it, because just a counterpoint to this is kind of like Liverpool desperately need a defensive midfielder 3 summers ago, and they get Wataru Endo as a stopgap solution, and Endo is fine. I really like him, and no one can fault his work rate, but he's probably the only player in Liverpool's squad who's not good enough to start a run of games for Liverpool. Great to have around the squad, useful thing, but you've got that asset on the books there, and he's just there. Really, what you want is someone who's got all those good attributes that Endo's got, but he's got all the attributes that like Gravenberch has got. You want you want starting footballers, and he was bought as a squad player, and when you buy squad players, they remain squad players. And if you get too many squad players, then ultimately you end up with an inflated wage bill, people on long contracts who just aren't improving the overall level of 11. Your mission should always be to improve your 11. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But this is the Endo point, is kind of my point on what happens if Liverpool sack Slot. There are, do you go and get an interim manager in for the short term, see the season out, and then you've got your next target along the line? Maybe that's certainly a possibility, because the problem is if Liverpool keep losing, there is going to come a point where better might not be, in the short term, might not be loads harder to achieve. You might just be able to get a motivator to come in who just galvanises the squad and gets them doing more and gets more juice out of what we're getting so far. But it's dicey. That can go a couple of ways. That can go right for you, can go wrong for you. The Kenny thing, Solskjaer will be mentioned as Man United kind of had that with him. If it goes well, you've then got to make another big decision. And the thing that won't be getting discussed around this is that if Slot goes, his coaching staff go as well. So not only you are in the meat of the season, you've got to find someone to come in and motivate a squad that is absolutely on its arse because of an unprecedentedly heartbreaking summer, and then the poor form that they're now carrying on their back into every game, and the ill-ease amongst the fans as well. You've got to populate the coaching staff, and they've got to be good enough for the job as well, because you can't just get a bunch of bums in to train people. If you want to compete at the top of the Premier League now, you've got to have a world-class manager and a world-class coaching team to go around your world-class footballers. Man United got this wrong when they got rid of Ferguson. They brought in Moyes, who wasn't world-class, and he got rid of all the really good coaching staff and brought his mediocre coaching staff in, and that basically kick-started a decade of just endless cycles of changing and Man United chasing the tails. Liverpool need to have a consistent vision, but Liverpool's form might be playing them into making a decision here. The point on this really for me is, my take is, I don't really know. I don't have I trust Michael Edwards. I don't know about Richard Hughes, but I definitely trust Michael Edwards, and I trust the ownership to make a strong decision one way or the other. I'm kind of interested to see what they do, because I think it's very bold one way or the other. I think if you sack the manager, that's a huge decision. It is very bold, and it's got to be the right decision. But it actually, in some regards, might be even bolder and braver to keep him and to say, no, we're going to ride this one out. Do we ride it out to the season and go, you know what, we might miss out on Champions League football and it might be an absolute disaster, but it gives us the rest of the season to work out what to do next. And that's very difficult for fans to live in, because we're the ones turning up and we're paying our money and we're putting our happiness on the line twice a week. So it's very miserable to live in a world where you're basically being told, nah, this is just going to carry on. Now, of course, things don't stay fixed. Either way, there is a possibility for it to get worse and better with either thing. There could be just some point where it just work a little bit better for Liverpool. It doesn't feel like that right now, I'll be honest, and I was prepared. I felt more inclined to have this opinion a few weeks ago, but it's just seeing the capitulation on the pitch does make me wonder whether this squad has the ability, and the manager has the ability collectively to get them together and get them solid again. They just don't look like a team that just loves winning the ball back and fighting for each other on the pitch. It looks like they've lost a step. It looks like the post-quad season, when the legs kind of fell off the team and they wanted it, but physically they couldn't do it. Now, I don't think this is totally physiological. I do think it's a psychological thing, but it feels kind of similar to that. Something big needs to change. Now, the issue is Klopp's had slumps. He had 2 or 3 really bad spells in his time as Liverpool manager, but we stuck by him. because ultimately we felt we had the best manager in the world, and he was going to get it right. Like, Slot's gone and won the league in his first season, and I'm already seeing people go like trying to tarnish that and kind of, oh no, you know, it was clearly an accident, oh it was a Klopp's team, blah blah blah. I'm not having that at all. I'm really genuinely not. There was a very small list of managers who've won the Premier League, so to like be childish about it and try to take that away from him is not true. The issue that he's got, I think, so he's got that credit in the bank and he deserves that credit in the bank, but I do have a general sense of, Slot feels to me like just a football manager. He is just a very good football manager, but just a football manager. And sometimes I think at Liverpool, not sometimes, all the time, you need to feel more than that. And I'm not 100% convinced that he's got that. Maybe that will follow. But one thing I did say last season was I didn't really like his brand of football, not compared to Jurgen's, but I was prepared to kind of swallow it if it meant that Liverpool won trophies and won the league, and they did. And so, you know, all's well that ends well. But if it's not going well on the pitch, it's hard to imagine that it will come good, because there just is a fire missing from this side. That under Jurgen's teams, you always got the sense of they run through brick walls. And so even when it wasn't working, you could put stock in that. And that seems to be a bit lacking. And that just is, I think, an ethos difference. I don't think Slot has, that's not Slot ball of like all energy, high intensity pressure. Maybe he wants it, but if he wants it, I'm not seeing enough of it on the pitch. And sometimes that work rate can get you through a mire. As long as you feel like everyone's busting a gut and no one's given up till the 95th, 96th minute, then you can lose, but you can take heart from the effort that's gone in. It hasn't felt like that in the last couple of games, and that's a huge worry. So look, am I Slot in or Slot out? I honestly, this sounds like a bit of a cop-out. I honestly, when I say I don't care, that sounds a bit callous. I just want to see Liverpool win. I don't know what the best answer is ultimately what I'm kind of saying. I don't know whether it's the right decision or not. So I don't really want to have a publicly this or this, because if Liverpool win a handful of games, now if Liverpool win the next 3, then it will feel loads better. Liverpool will probably be in the top 4 and the season will feel like it started to right itself. But I understand that sat here right now, it feels mad that Liverpool can go from basically not winning games to suddenly winning 3 on the bounce. There's a lot of pressure on the West Ham, and the West Ham game, and the issue around that is, I fear that when you start saying he needs to win when you have that, you've got to win games to save your job. It's very rare that happens. And so I'm seeing a number of signs that are pointing towards the end of something, rather than Liverpool turning the corner and being refreshed and going again. But football's mad and things can happen, and Liverpool have got loads of great footballers, and Slot is a really, really good coach, but he does need to figure something out pretty sharpish. Loads of people were talking to me in the match, and I think it's telling that there is a lot of negativity online, and it's not quite represented at Anfield. It is starting to creep in. People are leaving before the end of the game. That's a really, really bad sign. Apathy is almost worse than anger. But there were some boos at full time, but then they were totally and utterly overshadowed by a big chant of "We love you, Liverpool," a big show of support from the crowd as well. And people were saying, "Paul, what's your take?" And I was saying kind of the things that I've said here. And that seems to be the general consensus, is that a lot of people are like, it doesn't feel right to jump on the manager's back. But it's hard to balance that with the fact that Liverpool are in utterly abysmal form, and that is not good enough. But yeah, how do you strike the moral balance between being a good person and being a good supporter of these people who, you know, that you love and adore, who are going through a thing, but also that pressure that comes from outside as well. You know, the commentators, the colour commentators, the pundits, you know, all these mad sociopathic social media accounts, Paddy Power, Liverpool become the butt of the joke, and we want to not be the butt of the joke. We want our place at the top table. We want to have our cake and eat it, because God knows we waited for so long. So that embarrassment factor and annoyance factor adds to it, stokes the fire as well. And that's only going to add pressure on the decisions that Liverpool are going to make. What I hope is that they can ultimately turn it around, because the best solution from here, the simplest pathway back to success, is for Slot to get it right. But ultimately, we can't know whether he will or not, and the signs aren't positive, but we live in hope. I wish I had more. Let me know your thoughts on the wider thing. How are you balancing the idea of that, you know, we know all the stuff that they've gone through. How are you counterbalancing that with obviously this need that we all have to just watch our football team be good and win football matches? It's really tough. Look, yeah, thank you so much for watching, for subscribing, for dropping likes, and thank you to everyone, by the way, who has ordered my book. The Eternal Flame. We've just sold our first 100th copy of this, which is mad that this story has taken me 17 years to write. My mad little non-football superhero World War II story is a thing, and it's out in the world, and people are receiving them. And yeah, read it. Let me know if you've read it yet in the comments. That would be absolutely great. Head to www.magepublishing.com if you need some geeky, fun, non-football related escapism in your life with, yes, The Eternal Flame. It is really good, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Nice one.